Evening. I got the green light to get this amazing event started. It's just, first I just want to wing it and say how amazed I am to see you all here, how delighted I am that we can do this in person, what an important event this is, the 30th anniversary of the Baha'i Chair. So before starting the introductions, I really want to acknowledge our BSOS ambassadors. If you're a BSOS ambassador, are there any in the back? Let's give them a round of applause. Those are our student volunteers, the undergraduate students who are essential to the successful accomplishments of any event that's run in BSOS. And their continued efforts really help to make this college what it is. So thank you, student ambassadors. I'd also like to acknowledge President Darrell Pines and Senior Vice President and Provost Jennifer King Rice, under whose leadership Maryland's flagship university is healthier than ever and ready to tackle the enormous challenges that the present and the future hold for us, and so much of what the Baha'i Chair is really about. So the Baha'i Chair, along with the Anwar Sadat Chair for Peace and Development and the George and Lisa Zakhem Khalil Gibran Chair for Values and Peace, form this really unique triumvirate which seeks global dialogue and interdisciplinary understanding. And they are just one of the many undertakings that make the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences such a rich repository of insight and excellence, and which make me extremely proud to be dean. So that brings me to the sort of kickoff point for tonight's exciting 30th anniversary program. It's my sincere honor to introduce Dr. Jennifer King Rice, who was appointed as Senior Vice President and for Academic Affairs and Provost at the University of Maryland in July 2021. She was previously the Dean of the College of Education here at University of Maryland, where she focused her efforts to align educational resources and initiatives to advance excellence, equity, and social justice in preschool through graduate school. Provost Rice has served on the faculty and in college leadership roles at University of Maryland for more than 25 years. And has been recognized as a University of Maryland Distinguished Scholar Teacher, one of the highest honors that's bestowed on faculty. Now, Provost Rice completed her BS in Mathematics and English at Marquette University and earned her master's and PhD in Educational Administration and Social Foundations from Cornell University. Before coming to Maryland, she was a researcher at Mathematica Policy Research in Washington, D.C., and her scholarship draws on the disciplines of economics and philosophy to study policy questions concerning excellence and equity in K-12 educational systems. She's an expert on school finance and teacher policy and regularly advises state and federal agencies. And Dr. Rice is indeed a prolific scholar. She's served on the educational boards of American Educational Research Journal, Educational Evaluation and Policy Analyst, and Education and Finance Policy journals. And she's a fellow of the American Education Research Association and has been a National Academy of Education, Spencer Foundation postdoctoral fellow, and visiting fellow at the Urban Institute. Oh boy, this is going to take forever, Jennifer. She's also a past president of the Association for Education, Finance, and Policy. I feel very, very fortunate to be a dean under Provost King Rice's leadership, and it's an honor to welcome her to the stage to provide some opening remarks for tonight's amazing event.
Thank you so much, Dean Rivera, for that kind introduction. And thank you all so much for joining us this evening for this celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. I am just absolutely delighted to see so many of you here tonight and to be with you tonight. So many familiar faces and old friends. This room really, as I was reflecting as people were walking in, it's truly filled with the long and impactful legacy of the Baha'i Chair on this campus. So thank you for being part of tonight, and thank you for being part of this really important history on our campus. Tonight is a night to look forward, but to look backward, but also to look forward. 30 years ago, the University of Maryland reached out to the Baha'i community with an idea. What if we partnered together, applying essential human principles to engage with the world's largest problems that need attention and solutions? That simple inquiry, simple, maybe not so simple, but that inquiry was the start of a remarkable partnership that has resulted in a breadth of knowledge promoting the interests and well-being of humanity. Studying the major issues of world peace, the Baha'i Chair and its affiliated faculty collaborate with a wide range of scholars, researchers, and practitioners to address the many underlying issues that surround the broad concept of peacemaking, employing perspectives from diverse cultures. Looking for new approaches while recognizing the accomplishments of the past, the Baha'i Chair for World Peace serves as a model of not only how we should think about peace, but what we should be doing to achieve it. Over the past 10 years, the chair has hosted more than 250 speakers, published more than 25 books and articles, and hosted more than 80 conferences, symposia, and lectures. All of these events have been dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of peace, and the pursuit of a better world for humanity. As many of you know, and some of you may not, but you'll know in just a moment, our university has a new strategic plan, and I carry it around with me everywhere to remind me what we're all about. This plan is called Fearlessly Forward, in pursuit of excellence and impact for the public good. We're all about the public good at this university. Our strategic plan lays out a bold and comprehensive new vision for our university. And so many of the Baha'i Chair's activities, past, present, and future, are so perfectly aligned with our plan, driven by a key principle: service to humanity. At the University of Maryland, we're guided by an unwavering commitment to fearlessly forge a better world for humankind. Thank you. And the Baha'i Chair does this in so many ways. Through the rigorous examination into the roots of systemic racism and the causes of prejudice that we face way too often in our lives, to investigation of the structures that create women's inequality, to the impediments that restrain us from having a truly global system of governance and leadership, and to the causes of climate change, environmental injustice, and the challenges of human nature. The chair is a leader in what service at our university looks like. Service in support of the common good, a joining of scholarship with real-world impact. The Baha'i Chair has played a huge part in educating so many of our students and faculty and staff and beyond on social justice issues, perspectives on human dignity and human rights, globalization and security, sustainable development, and so many other topics. The work of the chair provides practical, actionable, real-world solutions, tackling problems headfirst with knowledge gleaned from research, collaboration, and engagement. So our shared future is an improved future for all. Dr. Hoda Mahmoudi, research professor and incumbent Baha'i Chair for World Peace here at the University of Maryland since 2012, has developed a sound scientific basis for knowledge and strategies that explore the role of social actors and structures in removing obstacles to peace and creating paths for a better world. As chair, she is committed to working with University of Maryland faculty and students and staff to develop innovative and interdisciplinary research proposals on topics that advance the public good. Her impactful work seeks to answer big questions like, how do we create world peace? Her work explores structural racism and the root causes of prejudice, and her focus on ethnic minority issues serves to impact and protect human rights and end systemic racism. She encourages people, in her words, to reflect and think more about the kind of world we want to have. Thank you for your wonderful leadership and your service to our university. So as you can tell from my comments, I am incredibly proud of this partnership at the University of Maryland, and I look forward to engaging with the Baha'i Chair as we continue to move fearlessly forward. Thank you again for inviting me to join you this evening as we mark this wonderful, amazing milestone together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Provost Rice. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Hoda, who really needs no introduction in this room, but I'll do my best. So for the past 30 years, the Baha'i Chair for World Peace has accomplished what is at the root principle of all serious undertakings in behavioral and social sciences, and even more broadly of intellectual and practical endeavors within a university, namely the desire to merge qualitative and quantitative, heart with mind, ideal with practice, and united all under the banner of benefiting others. Over the decades, the chair's activities have been in line with BSOS's, and BSOS is the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, but I'll use the term BSOS throughout, has aligned with our mission to increase understanding of the world's greatest challenges. Such understandings arise through sustained, committed intellectual and practical activity. The paths to such understandings are made clear by a devotion to openness, reflection, considered reason, and social trust. Finally, these understandings are secured through a dedicated effort to preserve, conserve, and share such findings with the world. But the chair doesn't simply seek understanding alone. In keeping with the best traditions of our college and our practice, and even as a guiding purpose of the university itself, understandings must always be linked to solutions. Indeed, to the most carefully scripted, thoughtful, innovative, and appropriate solutions. And it's here that the Baha'i Chair's link between understanding and application articulates the highest values of the BSOS ethos. And the chair has accomplished this union through a five-fold approach examining structural racism, world governance, global climate, systemic sexism, and human nature. It then takes a principled approach to the investigation and deployment of possible solutions. By seeking insight from wherever clarity may be found, the chair seeks to gather a set of best practices with a view towards social relief, intellectual cohesion, and moral and ethical uplift. How wonderful it is to gather here, 10 years after Dr. Mahmoudi's first annual lecture, and 30 years since the founding of the Baha'i Chair. 10 years after she first laid out her own vision for the chair. It was a vision which firmly aligned and aligns with the goals of the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences and with the broader undertakings of our university, as Provost Rice just explained. But of course, the chair's goals and our own goals go beyond what we do here as a college. The chair's goals connect to the broader goals of the School of Arts and Sciences, to our university and beyond. By pursuing meaningful research that neither sanctifies intellectual pursuits nor demeans practical goals, the chair helps to make an argument as to why universities in general, and the social sciences in particular, remain critically relevant to the nation's and the world's success. Dr. Mahmoudi's stewardship, shepherding, and furthering of the chair requires tact, which she definitely has, discipline, creativity, and an incredible amount of hard work. As I or anyone who oversees a complex undertaking can tell you, the requirements are tremendous. Yet as her colleague and predecessor, Suhail Bushri, explained in his remarks 10 years ago, Dr. Mahmoudi possesses in her manner what he called the silence of good things, a velvet glove covering an iron fist, the quiet assurance available to all who know that their work matters greatly. I will end with Dr. Mahmoudi's own simple, profound words from her first inaugural a decade ago. We are hopeful, confident, unafraid, and eager to labor on a creative path to world peace. May this labor continue, and may the path to world peace continue to widen. I give you Hoda Mahmoudi, Bahá'í Chair.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Please don't embarrass me. Please. Don't embarrass me. Thank you so much for being here. What a beautiful audience. You should see what I see from here. So we have a wonderful celebration tonight, and I have to thank Dean Rivera for her beautiful comments. We are very proud to have her in the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, and I will say more about that in a minute. But I want to tell Dean Rivera that I want to thank her for her ongoing support. I want to thank you for seeking to understand what it is that we do, and perhaps even more importantly, why we do it. And my hope is that tonight will be a night to revisit the past, acknowledge the present, and chart the course for the future. So I would like to welcome not only having Dean Rivera here, but also I would like to welcome the members of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States, and I will introduce these people in a minute, members of the Baha'i Chairs International Board, the distinguished guests who are here tonight. I'm delighted that you could join us, my friends, the faculty, the students, the staff, and of course my family members. It's really an honor to be here with you tonight, and it's such a pleasure to have you join us tonight. Now, I extend a warm welcome to many people on this 30th celebration, but there are some people that I must acknowledge. And as you know, at events such as this, we have to recognize all these people, and also you will get to know who they are and their importance to this very important endeavor, the work of the Baha'i Chair. So prepare yourselves, okay, as I begin this. First of all, I would like to begin by acknowledging a group of people who have worked very hard for months to see that this evening comes together. And that's largely my staff and other people, especially the staff in the Dean's office. And I'm going to name them, okay, because they have done a lot of work. My gratitude goes out to Dr. Kate Seaman, the Assistant Director of the Baha'i Chair, and to Mr. Malik Wilson, the Chair's Faculty Fellow. An important thank you also goes out to Miss Lori Evelyn, whose beautifully designed graphic art you see throughout this auditorium and in your program on the chair. Also to our students, Stella Hudson and Miss Meredith Friedland. Don't worry, you will see these people later and know who they are. I'll ask them to stand. And from the Dean's office, a special thank you to Miss Sarah Goff, to Miss Laura Ours, Miss Rachel Graham, to Miss Nancy O'Rourke, to Miss Abigail Masaris, who actually directs the the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, the BSOS ambassadors, okay? The wonderful students who are helping us tonight as volunteers. And I also would like to thank, if they are here, Bijan Sharifi, Arian Sobhani. They were helping with getting people from the parking lot to here. So anyway, these are the people who have literally have made this evening possible, and I owe a great debt of gratitude to them. Thank you. Let me also take the time to thank the Baha'i Chairs Advisory Board. All of these individuals have helped to make this event happen as well. But I would especially like to thank, in particular, Mrs. Mojgan Laghai Patel and Mr. Michael Zhang and his family. Also, Ms. Sarah Robarts and Mr. Farzad Qasemi and Nadim Vanderflirt for his support, for all of their support. Thank you so much. More broadly, and this is very important, my deep gratitude goes out to all of those, many of those, especially here tonight, too many to number and mention, who have supported the chair financially over the years. Thank you so much for your support. In the audience tonight, you would be happy to know that there are people who have traveled from Asia, from Australia, from the Middle East, from Europe, and beyond to be here. And we also have had people travel from all over the United States. One of my friends and board member called me or emailed me literally 3 or 4 days ago, Julian, I can't remember, but he said, I'm on the West Coast, but I think I can make it. And so he is here tonight, and we're delighted to see him. Anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. We are also very pleased that there are some very special people in the audience tonight, and I would like to then introduce them to you and to ask them to please stand when I do introduce them. I'm pleased to acknowledge Mrs. Mary Bushrui. Please stand. Please stand. Please stand. Mrs. Bushrui, as you know, her husband was Dr. Sohail Bushrui, the first holder of the Baha'i chair. She is here tonight with her daughter, Nadia Malarkey. Please stand. And Nadia's husband, Dr. Jim Malarkey. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Also, I would like to acknowledge Dr. John Grazel, the second holder of the Baha'i chair. Where are you, Dr. Grazel? Dr. Grazel and his wife, Mary Grazel. Please stand. Mr. Kenneth Bowers from the National Spiritual Assembly has been a key contributor to the Baha'i Chair's success. Please stand, Mr. Bowers. Thank you. He's here with his wife, Mojgan Bowers. Please stand, Mojgan. Also from the National Spiritual Assembly, Dr. Rabi Musa. Where are you? Please stand. Thank you for being here tonight. In fact, at this time, I would like to ask all the members of the International Advisory Board to please stand. And Julian, please. These are the people that work very hard to make this chair happen. Nan? Excuse me. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay. It's really hard for me to convey the debt of gratitude I owe to these members of the Baha'i Chair's International Advisory Board. These individuals actually, each in their own unique way, in their own special way, give invaluable advice and counsel to the work of the chair. Their wisdom and activities in service to the chair has profoundly shaped our stature, our prominence, profile, and reach, not only at the University of Maryland, but throughout the world. Thank you so much for your commitment and dedication. Thank you.
The vision of world peace is one to which we should aspire. The hope is that we can act on the basis of what we know to be highest. And my worry is that if the world falls apart, that we're going to completely give up on world peace altogether. And for that reason, forums like this, in which we are reminded of what is highest and given some reason to believe that it's possible to achieve it, these things are very important.
The moral arc of history bends towards justice, but it only bends if we pull really hard. And that's something the Baha'i Chair of World Peace understands. Our goals towards justice and equity are best achieved together rather than apart.
I think this class is probably the most important class to offer in universities because it creates such awareness and really starts conversations that otherwise wouldn't be started.
I'm also personally very interested in issues of social justice, and I thought it'd be a great way to have open discussion with other people who are similarly interested, because it's very hard to find people who are just willing to talk about these sorts of issues.
As I said, it's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Kenneth Bowers. Mr. Bowers has served as Secretary of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States since 2007. During his tenure as Secretary, he has become one of our dear friends, as well as a beloved champion of the Baha'i Chair. Mr. Bowers has served as the National Spiritual Assembly's liaison to the Baha'i Chair's Advisory Board, and his visits to the university, which are annually, are always an occasion of gratitude. Please welcome Mr. Bowers.
Good evening, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here. I'll begin, if I may, from a personal perspective. Not only is it my honor at present to be the liaison member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States to the Baha'i Chair for World Peace, but I also happen to have attended the inaugural meeting of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. I was actually here this month 30 years ago to see the installation of the first member, the first holder. And of course, little did I imagine at age 5 that I would have, no, I'm just kidding, yeah, it was exactly half a lifetime ago, so you do the math on that. But little did I imagine at that time that I would enjoy the privilege of following at close hand the journey of the chair down through the succeeding decades. And I think everyone who set out at the beginning was quite excited about it and knew, and I'm sure the university just as much, felt that we were off on an exciting new venture with a great deal to learn about how you systematically study the application of principle to the goal of peace. And there have just been wonderful achievements. You'll hear all about them during the course of the evening. I can't help, though, everyone, to say a few personal words about my impressions of the holders of those chairs as my first remarks. First, of course, we had Professor Sohail Bushri of cherished memory. And I wasn't sure if Mary would be here tonight, but I'm so delighted that you are here. Mary, you can't imagine the impact that Sohail had on so many of us here who are here tonight and countless others around the world, myself included. And I can't honestly imagine how Providence could have arranged a better initial holder of this chair for all of the talent and all of the enthusiasm that he brought. And I'll have to say that my wife and I, as we were thinking about our trip yesterday before coming here, we just imagined that somewhere in the world beyond, he must be so proud and so happy with what this chair has become. And he remains, I think, a source of inspiration and guidance for all of us. So thank you for him and for sharing him with us during his lifetime. He was succeeded, of course, by John Grazel, who brought a wonderful and different perspective to the work of the chair from the development field, and was extremely effective in helping us to think about, again, just the applied science of peace and of principle to the advancement of human civilization. And it's wonderful that John and Mary are here with us this evening. And of course, our very dear and esteemed Hoda Mahmoudi, about whom little need be said now that so much has been said, but I can just say that her service has exceeded any possible expectation we might have had. Really, it's been a source of tremendous pride and joy, and thanks really to the dedicated efforts of all of these very dear and precious souls, we have a record of history and achievement, which we will be celebrating tonight. I'd also, though, friends, like to focus another set of remarks on a different dimension of the chair's history, because looking back over the course of these 3 decades, it's impossible to imagine for me how the chair could have found a more congenial home than the University of Maryland. The essential premise of the chair is to view all of humanity in all of its infinite diversity and richness as an organic whole. And with this view, its work is to advance discourse and learning about the path to world peace through the systematic and scientific application of principles of which the world is in dire need, as Dean Rivera reminded us. And we who have been associated with this effort have come to see to what a wonderful extent the university itself reflects this perspective. And what's more, in these years, these same decades, the university has steadily grown in reputation, truly as a world-class institution, global in scope, global in consciousness, and global in impact. And it's been a source of great pleasure and satisfaction to witness the many ways in which the work of the chair has been embraced and supported by the Center for International Development and Conflict Management, which is the chair's home, but also the faculty in various other departments, and of course, the university administration. And this gives solid reason for confidence in the chair's future under the university's capable and admirable leadership. So let us thank the University of Maryland, please, for all that they've done. And then a final thing, the National Spiritual Assembly, which, as many of you know, is the elected governing council of the Baha'is of the United States, has been following with keen attention and great pride the development of the chair ever since its inauguration. And every year, the Assembly has made financial contributions towards its work. The funds that are held by the Assembly are voluntarily contributed by Baha'is all over the United States, and they are considered by the members of the National Assembly to be a sacred trust. That is to say, they are to be expended only on those things which best promote the betterment of humanity and the advancement of human affairs. And there are few matters from the perspective of the Baha'is that are more essential than education and the life of the intellect, especially when that education and intellectual life is pursued within a moral framework whose aim is justice and prosperity for all. So in this respect, we see in the chair and the university an ideal partnership with bright prospects for the future. Now, this past September, the National Assembly gave its largest ever single contribution in the amount of $335,000 for the work of the chair. But when we met last week, we could not resist this opportunity and deemed it timely to offer yet another tangible expression of gratitude to Hoda and also to the University of Maryland. So I'm very honored to present to the university, to Dean Rivera, an additional contribution of $100,000 with the esteem and best wishes of the Baha'is of the United States. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for your remarks. I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ken. And please, our thank you to the National Spiritual Assembly for that wonderful gift. Thank you. So up on the stage is Ms. Sin M. Chu. She is a shining example of our brilliant advisory board. A graduate of Oxford University and a member of Oxford University China Advisory Group, she is also the founder and president of Unity Asset Management, a private investment management and advisory firm. Ms. Chu is the president of UAM Hong Kong, a private investment and philanthropy office, and is an important advocate for women's leadership, having previously served as president of the International Women's Forum. It is with great pleasure that I invite her to please come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Hoda. I follow in steps of giants. It is a difficult position to be in, but so honored to be able to talk about the chair and the inspiration that brought about the chair. Just over 30 years ago, an important document was published that provided inspiration for the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. It declared that world peace is not only possible, it's inevitable. This is the next stage in the evolution of this planet. Around the time of the establishment of the Peace Chair, there was a monumental surge of optimism. The Berlin Wall had fallen, and there was euphoria, yes, euphoria, that global peace had arrived. Yet, enlightened institutions like the University of Maryland knew that this was only the beginning of a long and complex process. This university was prescient in supporting the establishment of such a unique and necessary program as the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. Peace is not just about a desire. If it was so, we would have a far more peaceful world. Neither is it about abolishing peace by signing treaties. It is about a rigorous and scientific process which Hoda adheres to. For 30 years, this chair has facilitated, encouraged, and reached out across the globe in a multidisciplinary and multicultural way to generate knowledge, to collaborate with partners. It seeks a perspective that harmonizes what is inherent in human nature, while at the same time it induces a will, a desire, a dynamic, an aspiration that leads to discoveries and implementations of practical measures. This is what the chair does. So at the chair, we affirm the belief that the potentialities inherent in the station of man, the full measure of his destiny on earth, the innate excellence of his reality, his nobility, all must be manifested in due course. A foundational principle, therefore, must be the oneness of mankind. Recognition of this truth immediately requires that one abandons all forms of prejudice, whether it be of color, creed, nationality, gender, all of that immediately becomes abolished. My colleagues and I, who serve on the international board of the chair, bring a global perspective to the work of the chair, while at the same time we bring the work of the chair to the world. In discussions with global leaders, it is clear to me that all recognize the necessity of the work of the chair. They are impressed that there is such an integrative process and research that goes on in the chair, and that there is such deep understanding of the path to peace by the chair. President Pines counsels us to take on the grand challenges of our time and to be at the forefront of today's most pressing issues. The first 3 words in his page in the university website is, "Let us unite." Provost Rice wants to ensure academic excellence while promoting social justice, cultural diversity, resource conservation, and economic opportunity. Dean Rivera wants us to adhere to a culture of impactful research and scholarship. President Pines, Provost Rice, and Dean Rivera, may I proudly say that HODA has faithfully and very capably adopted these same objectives, applied the same criteria of excellence to be at the forefront of the most pressing issues relating to peace. HODA and the chairs before her, we are in awe of your achievements. We admire the dignified and unifying instincts that is inherent in you. We are impressed by the breadth and depth of your reach in advancing the essential and urgently needed work of the chair. Martin Luther King tells us, true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. I believe that ultimately the purpose of justice is to bring about unity. Albert Einstein says peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Understanding, justice, unity, these are some of the animating principles that the chair seeks to promote. Who knows when world peace will be achieved? But we know that the well-being of mankind, its peace and security, is unattainable until unity is firmly established. Maybe it will take 30 years, 70 years, and beyond. HODA and all of us at the International Board, and those who will follow in our stead, will work tirelessly until these fruitless strifes, these ruinous wars will pass, and the most great peace has come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chu, very much for those comments. We are now pleased to present a musical selection that is performed by Ms. Stacy Roy, Mr. Jamal Weldon, and Mr. James Weldon. Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appeared the hour I first believed. Amazing grace, sweet the sound that saves a wretch like me. Was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see.
Miss Stacy Roy, thank you so much. Thank you very much. And James and Jamal Weldon, thank you. Thank you. So under the leadership of President Pines, who is the president of the university, and I'm sorry he couldn't be with us here tonight, and Senior Vice President and Provost Rice, which you met earlier, and our own Dean Rivera, the University of Maryland continues to enhance its national and international reputation as a leading institution of higher learning. President Pines, in his inaugural address in 2021, stated this. He says, "This is a time to think strategically, to discover and implement 21st century ways to improve the quality of instruction, research, administrative operations, and spirit of community. We are a land-grant public research university that serves the public good for all humanity." President Pines' words that this is the time and that service for the public good must benefit all of humanity, is the charge we need. Tonight's anniversary celebration offers us a unique opportunity to look back at the journey embarked upon by the University of Maryland and the Baha'i Chair, a journey that began in January of 1993. Today's event commemorates an effort that first began a little more than 30 years ago when the University of Maryland reached out to the Baha'i community to announce that they had an interest in understanding how the Baha'i ideas might translate to the work of peace. But you would be interested to know that the origins of the Baha'i Chair are rooted within the devastation of war-torn Lebanon in the early 1980s, where that country was going through a very, very difficult time. At that time, two individuals were working separately toward a resolution to this catastrophic struggle, one that was ruining the country. Professor Edward Azar, then a University of Maryland professor in the Department of Government and Politics, who also served as director for the Center for International Development and Conflict Management, was introduced to Professor Boucheri. Professor Boucheri at that time was an Oxford University professor. Professor Azar urged Professor Boucheri to come to the University of Maryland, where they could both work together to realize world peace. At the same time, and quite independently of their efforts, the Baha'i Faith's International Council, the Universal House of Justice, released a statement entitled "The Promise of World Peace." It was a statement that defined the obstacles to world peace and explored the role that every individual and institution should play in removing the barriers to peace. Upon encountering this statement, Professor Azar at the University of Maryland was so moved by its contents that he wrote to the International Baha'i Council proposing the establishment of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace at the University of Maryland. What followed were years of efforts that ultimately culminated in the establishment of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. The purpose of the chair would henceforth be to conduct and publish research, design courses, and conduct seminars on world peace within an interdisciplinary context. In January of 1993, Professor Sohail Boucheri was installed as the first holder of the Baha'i Chair, with then University of Maryland President William E. Kerwin presiding over the first inauguration. Judge Dorothy Nilsson, also in attendance, served as liaison between the Baha'i Chair and the National Spiritual Assembly from 1990 to 2009. And there were many others who assisted our development. President C.D. Dan Mott, Jr. from the University of Maryland, Deans Murray, Polikoff, and Irv Goldstein, and Assistant Dean Cynthia Hale, Professor Eddie Kaufman, and Jonathan Wilkenfeld. Prior to his time as the first holder of the Baha'i Chair, Professor Sohail Boucheri was an internationally recognized scholar of Anglo-Irish, English, and Arabic literature, and a well-known English professor with a love for W.B. Yeats. He was also a scholar of the writings of Khalil Gibran. Among his numerous publications is his fantastic co-edited volume, The Spiritual Heritage of the Human Race, a book which received the Juliet Hollister Award. As is clear, The start of the chair's efforts begins in large part with Professor Boucherie. A consummate collaborator, Professor Boucherie was a deeply engaged teacher, intellectually astute leader, and a profoundly memorable man. Our next speaker will speak to Professor Boucherie's legacy as a teacher and leader. Dr. James Madeo, speaking to us virtually from Prague, is a former student of Professor Boucherie. And he went on to teach and publish alongside Professor Boucherie. Dr. Madeo received his PhD from the University of Manchester and was postdoctoral fellow at the New Europe College in Bucharest, Romania. He has been a lecturer at the University of Manchester, Charles University, and here at the University of Maryland. He is currently fellow at the Oriental Institute of the Czech Academy of Sciences and at the Oxford Center for Hebrew Studies. Please watch the screen for Dr. Madeo's presentation.
Hello. I'd like to extend my apologies for not being able to attend this auspicious event in person. My name is Dr. James Madeo. I hold an academic research position at the Oriental Institute in Prague and at the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. I graduated from the University of Maryland in 2002 with undergraduate degrees in history and philosophy. While the Baha'i Chair carries out a variety of important research and outreach initiatives, one of the core objectives of the Chair is teaching. I would like to say a few words about this from the perspective of a former student of the university. It would not be an understatement to say that the trajectory of my life was shaped by having had the good fortune of taking the classes of Professor Suhail Bishoui, the first holder of the Baha'i Chair. The first course I took with Professor, which was offered through the interdisciplinary program at the Honors Department, was on Khalil Gibran and immigrant traditions in America. It was by far the most interesting and inspiring class I had taken at Maryland. The course was driven by Professor's profound presence, his unique ability to connect with students, and his overall approach to education, which, as the original meaning of the Latin entails, involves a process of drawing out that which was already present. And although I was a lost 19-year-old who was at best an average student, Professor Bishoui saw potential. He took the time to encourage me, to challenge me. After that course was over, he would say, "Mr. Madeo," and those of us who took Professor's classes know that he preferred to use last names to refer to his students. "Stop by my office every month," he told me. "I want to keep in touch with you." And so began a long relationship, a kind of apprenticeship. I later took his class on the spiritual heritage of the human race, a survey course of the world's great religious traditions, which was designed specifically to address the challenges of religious diversity and to closely consider the peace-inducing resources of the different religions. I would continue my studies with Professor through an independent study course on Sufism, pursuing a student internship at the Baha'i Chair, and later working at the chair as one of his assistants. Those in the audience today who knew Professor Bishoui well will understand why I'm truly at a loss of words to speak about him. What I do think is important to say here is that Professor always put his students above accolades, above the limelight, above the pettiness of professorial ego. Although he taught at many universities across the globe, I witnessed not only how he changed my life, but how he changed so many lives in the classrooms at College Park. And although I ended up in academia, working broadly within religious studies, I am not unique in owing such a significant debt to Professor. So many students shared a special relationship with Professor Bishoui. So many students at Maryland were inspired. The lives of so many students changed. On behalf of the diverse alumni student body, I would like to thank all of those at the university and the broader community who made possible and continue to make possible the work of the chair, whose incumbent, Professor Mahmoudi, continues this tradition of student-centered teaching and research. In closing, and in honor of Professor Bashoui, I would like to recall one of his favorite lines of poetry from the American poet Edwin Markham. While I certainly could draw from Yeats, Gibran, or Ibn al-Arabi, the professor was particularly fond of how these lines capture his ethos and his method of bridge building. He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. Thank you.
In 2006, looking to continue Professor Bashoui's wonderful efforts, Professor John Grazel became the second holder of the Baha'i Chair. Professor Grazel brought a broad international perspective to the chair's efforts, a perspective honed by his time as a senior Foreign Service officer with USAID. As leader of the Baha'i Chair from 2006 to 2011, Professor Grazel developed programs which reaffirmed the chair's intellectual commitments and furthered its interdisciplinary ideas. One of his accomplishments was the course he taught on peace building, post-conflict reconstruction, and international development. Professor Grazel, thank you. In July 2012, I became the third holder of the Baha'i Chair. It would be impossible to thank everyone who was instrumental in supporting me, because when I came here, I had lived in another country overseas for 11 years. I hadn't been fully involved in academia in those years. And so coming to this university, taking on this new post was somewhat of a challenge for me. And so when I came to the university in 2012, there were many people who really assisted me in adjusting to this, not only a new place to live, but also a new university and a new position. First and foremost, I'd like to mention Dr. John Townsend, who was then the Dean of the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, followed by Dr. Gregory Ball, who is in the audience. Could you stand because you came in late? Dr. Ball succeeded John Townsend. He is now vice president in the division of research at the University of Maryland, but he also was very instrumental in assisting the chair in every way that he could. Also, I'd just like to mention Associate Dean Wayne McIntosh, Senior Assistant Dean Ann Holmes. They were critical to my success, to our success here. Also vital to the chair's work is Associate Dean Catherine Russell. I'm grateful to her for her mentorship. Associate Dean Patricio Korzenowitz, Associate Dean Jean McGloin, Assistant Dean Kim Nickerson, and Assistant Dean Menshu Lee. I'm grateful to all of you and the staff in that office, which includes Ms. Sarah Goff, the Chief of Staff and Executive Assistant to the Dean, Ms. Joyce Romanoff, Financial Assistant from the Dean's Office to the Chair. Please stand and be recognized. All the deans, all the staff, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Another individual who has had a great influence on our work and a great influence on me and my life is Professor Rayshawn Ray. He is a dear, dear friend, and I have learned enormously from him. He is Professor of Sociology and Executive Director of the Lab for Applied Social Sciences and Social Science Research at the University of Maryland. He is instrumental in helping to plan the chair's activities concerning systemic racism and prejudice. I could not do that work without him, and he knows it. His generous efforts have led to the chair inviting nearly 80 leading scholars and hosting more than 40 campus events. Last year, these ongoing efforts to research and understand the ravages of anti-Black racism and racial discrimination resulted in our publication of a volume called Systemic Racism in America, an important addition to the scholarship on this very important topic. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce Professor Rayshawn Ray to you. His research addresses the structures that create and maintain racial social inequality, and his work also speaks to the ways that inequality may be attenuated through racial activism and social policy. Professor Ray is Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution, and starting in 2 days, Vice President and Managing Director at the American Institute of Research. He has published more than 50 articles, essays, chapters, and books, and more than 20 op-ed pieces. Please welcome Professor Ray.
Thank you so much, Hoda. It is so amazing to see so many people here, and only the Baha'i Chair could really pack it out like this as we are coming out of, whatever stage of life we're in with this pandemic. But I have the pleasure of talking about working with the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. And in many ways, this journey starts with how I met Dr. Hoda Mahmoudi. We both started at the same time in fall 2012. I was a new assistant professor, and I was at a new faculty and staff event. I didn't know anyone. I was trying to stand in the corner and drink some lemonade and eat a cookie or something. And someone just kind of kept looking at me and walked over and started talking. And it was Dr. Hoda Mahmoudi. And she said, "It looks like you need to speak to someone." And she was right, because I was new, I was nervous. And that literally started our journey where we are now. And at the end of that night, Hoda said, we need to find a way to work together. And we did in a very, very big way. I also just want to acknowledge, think about the speakers that have been up here. Amazing speakers. But who the people are and their identities is actually deliberate on behalf of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. When we think about race, when we think about gender, when we think about age, when we think about institutional affiliation, including, of course, Dean Rivera and Provost Rice, that all of these things not only represent the chair, but they also represent who Hoda is as a person. And that is something that I've had the pleasure of seeing up close on an everyday basis. I consider Hoda to be one of my mentors, to be one of my friends, and that is because, as she noted, for over a decade, we have worked together on this systemic racism initiative. And it's important to note, when we were trying to come up with something to work on together, I said, well, look, I study race in America, right? And I study its contours and those sort of things. And Hoda said, I know. And she did not shy away from that. In a period where even today, people are continuing to shy away from how we think about prejudice and how we think about discrimination, not just in the United States, but in a global context. The Baha'i Chair for World Peace, Dr. Hoda Mahmoudi, and also the International Board never did that. And instead realized that if we are actually going to move toward world peace, we actually have to address prejudice and discrimination. So as Hoda mentioned, we started to invite people. And she said, well, who are some of the top scholars? So we put a list together. And Hoda said, let's go get them. And we did. And we packed out this room over and over again, including 3 presidents of the American Sociological Association, a MacArthur Genius Fellow, a director of the White House Office of the Office of Science Technology Policy, and professors from Harvard, Berkeley, Hopkins, Brown, Northwestern, Stanford, Michigan, Duke, Columbia, and of course, the University of Maryland, reaching thousands of students, impacting them on a regular basis. Hoda mentioned the book that we edited. If you turn to page 25 in that pamphlet that you have, you'll actually see that this is just one of many volumes that the Baha'i Chair for World Peace has produced. So not only is she putting on events, Not only is she teaching classes, not only is she engaging in people, but then she is writing the scholarship. That, of course, as we think about this legacy of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace, is how it started. And that is one of the things that Dr. Hoda Mahmoudi has continued. In line with Hoda's course, her chapter in our book focused on the root causes of prejudice. And I just want to close by reading a part of her book, or a part of her chapter in our book, because I think it really speaks to the work that we've done, and it really speaks to the work of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. Hoda says, quote, "At its heart, racial injustice is a spiritual problem that threatens the secular success of the American state. As a fundamentally immaterial challenge, racial justice echoes concepts of human dignity. That applies to all human beings. Human dignity brings attention to the sacred nature of all human beings. In contrast, the scourge of racism is evil and the antithesis to dignity. Where racism exists, corruption abounds. Where corruption exists, racial injustice in all its forms, individual and institutional, stands to destroy the moral standards and integrity of a society and nation. The blight of racism and the prescription for its eradication are matters critical to the survival of any republic. Every citizen and every institution must make a determined effort to bring about racial equity. Dismantling systemic racism is a daunting task, but so is maintaining the status quo. America's greatness and its potential for prosperity, happiness, and peace is a worthy goal. Yet, before this goal can be reached, there must be an assessment of the barriers to this goal," end quote. Whether it is systemic racism, sexism, climate change, and other topics, the Baha'i Chair for World Peace shows the human rights side and gives us hope that true world peace is possible. Thank you.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberties. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the presence has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
The principles that we associate with the Baha'i Chair. A lot of what you talk about, a lot of what the whole mission of the chair pivots around, speaks to these challenges in ways that are meaningful and that might point a way forward.
Peace processes, negotiations often tend to be done by a small group, largely men. And when peace processes are exclusive and top-down, they don't always reflect the broad views of the population that's actually affected by conflict.
And my soul rejoiced when I learned that one of the purposes of the Baha'i Chair was to advance the empowerment of women. Because my career has been not only in the field of foreign policy and national security, but increasingly looking at the situation of women as it relates to those phenomena.
I know the climate crisis and racial injustice are separate things, but they are so deeply intertwined. And I know the climate crisis is like a big enough challenge without having to deal with race. And we all wish we could just deal with one, but we can't. It's like it just won't work because we need to solve problems as they actually exist, not as some idealized version of the way that we want the world to be, right? And the world is complicated.
Where he begins with the really big question: what is the highest of all human goods? I think it's a really important question to start with. The highest of all human goods is activity of the soul in accord with virtue. And then he pushed himself to ask, what is the highest of all virtues? And that's where eudaimonia comes in. And it is about achieving the best that is within us, given our unique talents and capacities and limitations.
Since my tenure began, I have had an honor of working with an accomplished group of students and colleagues. And I'd like to ask them to stand because they really make the work of the chair possible. Dr. Kate Seaman, please come up and let us see you. Assistant Director of the Baha'i Chair. I can never get her to come to the front of the room. So there she is, Dr. Kate Seaman. Yes. She helps facilitate the complex operation of our activities and functions as the chair's internal voice to others. Mr. Malik Wilson, please stand and come up to the front. Mr. Wilson is also a vital behind-the-scenes actor in our efforts who brings intellectual precision to his service to the chair. Thank you, Malik. And on the stage, Ms. Stella Hudson, our graduate, please stand, our graduate assistant, and Ms. Meredith Friedland, our social media and marketing intern. And in this audience tonight, there are many former staff, students, and volunteers of the chair. Please stand and be recognized. So now it's my privilege to introduce a former student of mine who has remained particularly close to the chair. And the first student, there will be two of them, is Miss Ashley Taylor. She's sitting on the stage, the first one on this side. Her relationship with the Baha'i Chair began when she attended one of our events and afterwards made an appointment and came to my office and said, can I work for this Baha'i Chair? And of course, I nearly fell off my chair. So I said, of course you can work for the chair. And that's how our relationship started, that she wanted to work for this program. And I have to tell you that 1 year, Ashley and I were the only two who were running the Baha'i Chair. She did such a magnificent job that that year was made possible because of her efforts. Anyway, what ensued is a wonderful encounter with a person who became a teaching assistant in my class and who did enormous work for the Baha'i Chair. Ashley graduated from Maryland, from the University of Maryland in 2018 with a degree in government and politics, but then she obtained her Juris Doctor and a Master's of Environmental Law and Policy from Vermont Law School. After being accepted to the DC bar in 2022, she was selected for the United States Air Force Judge Advocate General Corps and is currently stationed at the Joint Base of Langley and Eustis in Hampton, Virginia. Please welcome Ashley Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. First off, I just want to thank you, Huda, for inviting me to come and speak. Like she mentioned, I interned, and I was always behind the scenes and never thought I would be up here. As we all know, today we're here to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. 30 years is a long time to continuously advance an interdisciplinary examination and discourse on global peace, and this chair serves as a true champion of that endeavor. I was so lucky to find it my freshman year of college. As Hoda mentioned, I had a friend who needed to attend an on-campus lecture for women's studies for one of her classes, and the chair just so happened to be hosting a lecture on Iranian women writers, and I was so moved that I knew that I needed to get involved in any way that I could and jumped at the opportunity presented to me. And that started my journey with the Baha'i Chair and the work of Dr. Mahmoudi. This is not your average research center, think tank, or other organization tasked with the job of finding the solution to world peace. The chair has never made assertions that the sole absence of one thing would directly lead to the development of absolute peace. To be honest, none of us have ever seen what a peaceful society actually looks like, and we couldn't even begin to know how to maintain one. But that fact does not discourage the chair or the work that it continues to do by bringing together scholars from all over the world to discuss their concrete views of how we can achieve peace in a variety of ways, whether that's within ourselves, our communities, our education system, our environment, and in so many other aspects. Through my years of working at the chair, I've been able to see so many people come away from a conference, a symposia, a lecture, with a newfound understanding of achieving global peace. I had the pleasure of serving as a teaching assistant for Dr. Mahmoudi's honors seminar. And in that class, we discussed prejudice, its roots, and how it's inherent within all of us to have biases. And it's nothing to be ashamed of, but important to dig deeper and understand why we have those biases and not let them be the sole determining factor on how you see someone. Again, this was not your typical college seminar. It was nothing like statistics, history, or English, because in any of those classes, I don't remember having to reflect inward. In this particular seminar, I saw students truly grow and become introspective. And at the end of the semester, we might not have single-handedly solved the problem of prejudice, but we began to lay the groundwork to initiate a lifelong dialogue that will need to be revisited time and time again. Years later, students have reached out to me saying how transformative the class was and how they're still initiating this dialogue, continuing to have hard conversations, whether that be within themselves, their friend groups, or amongst their families, and that's exactly what we need in times like this. This goes to show how deeply those students were affected in a positive way by the chair and how their perspectives changed. The work of the chair has had a significant impact on my life, and I grew in a number of ways working here, and I can honestly say that I don't think that I would be where I am today if it wasn't for the Baha'i Chair. And I appreciate the work of Dr. Mahmoudi and the chair and look forward to all the future endeavors for the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, very much. It's these students that keep you going. The next student is Emily Gorey, who also comes to us virtually from Los Angeles. She worked for the chair in various ways, but she also was a student in the honors class, and she really distinguished herself so much that I asked her if she could be an assistant, a teaching assistant in the class, and she agreed. But she was also our social media person because she majored in marketing. She graduated in 2019 and began work as a strategist for the Los Angeles-based creative agency 72 and Sunny. and she'll come to us virtually.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here and letting me speak about the chair. I'm extremely passionate about it. So any chance I get, hype it up. I'm excited. But I wanted to talk about it from a pretty personal level of how the chair has impacted my life. So I actually grew up in the second wealthiest county in the United States, which is the famously wealthiest country in the world. It took me 18 years to learn this fact and the immense privilege that comes with it. It wasn't until college that I learned how different the world looked outside of the bubble that I'd ever known. I was blissfully unaware that the bubble even existed at all. I never noted or attempted to understand why my classmates were predominantly white, or why the kids who came from further out west, the more rural areas, were in less advanced classes. They floated in their own circles and seemed to get in trouble far more often. There was reasoning to the undercurrents of my life. There were connections to be made, but I never had the need to draw a line from point A to point B. I was ignorant of the fact that my normal was not normal. Throughout college, I took 35 classes, but there is only one that changed the fundamentals of how I look at the world. I was lucky enough to walk into Dr. Mahmoudi's honor seminar my first week at the University of Maryland back in 2016. It was here that I learned how different the world looks outside of Howard County, Maryland. I heard emotional and personal stories firsthand from my peers. I read the science about our unconscious biases. I watched videos showing how deeply people can hate their fellow man. I learned how quietly inequality is ingrained into our systems, thoughts, and environments. But most importantly, I realized I am one of the luckiest people on the earth. And with that, it is my duty to reach out and help those less fortunate. A year later, I had the opportunity to see the class from the other side. I was a TA, and I watched a new group of students come to similar realizations as mine. I saw the power of empathy take hold. My role running the Baha'i Chair social media gave me the opportunity to help its work reach more people. My education exploring the 5 themes also continued as I attended the chair's events. And together with my fellow Terps, we became better listeners, allies, and advocates. Unfortunately, my time with the chair had to come to an end. I couldn't avoid graduation forever, even if I wanted to. But even though I have left, the lessons from my time at the chair continue to inform my life and decisions. I currently help brands figure out how to best speak and reach their audiences. But because of the chair, I have become aware of the data biases that arise from defaulting to a white male consumer. I advocate for data diversity because 1, it works better, and 2, the power of representation is very real. As I continue my career in advertising, I will prioritize the amplification of consumer voices that push for the placement of people and planet over profits. I have been given the tools to do my small part in helping my fellow man. My relationship with the chair has fundamentally changed me into a more aware, selfless, and thoughtful person. However, I am just one of the countless young adults shaped by the work of Dr. Mahmoudi and Dr. Seaman. Through education and discussion, they are building a more equitable future, one young mind at a time. As for me, I cannot thank the Baha'i Chair for World Peace enough for what they gave me. Thank you.
I would like to now invite Stella and Meredith to the podium.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stella Hudson, and I have worked as the graduate assistant for the Baha'i Chair for the last 2 years.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I'm currently a senior here at the University of Maryland, and I'm the social media marketing intern, and I've also been with the Baha'i Chair for the last 2 years.
During my time with the chair, I've had so many opportunities for learning and growth. The work I have done here has been so illuminating and fulfilling. It has deeply impacted me personally and shaped my academic and research interests, which I hope to continue to pursue after I graduate in May with my Master's of Library and Information Science.
When I was originally looking for an internship, I was struggling to find something that would combine my marketing skills with my interest in helping others. Little did I know how much I would learn over these last 2 years. Each lecture I've attended has broadened my understanding of the complex world in which we live, outside of a small town in which that I grew up.
Professor Mahmoudi approaches complex questions with intelligence and an important human perspective, diving into the root of the problem. She has been an amazing guide and mentor, and her capacity for scholarship and strength has been inspiring.
My time in the office with Professor Mahmoudi has created a space where I feel safe to ask questions and have discussions. from social justice topics to what I want to do with my future career. It has given me a role model and a mentor, for she is a strong woman who is actively taking strides to create a better world and stand up for the injustices embedded within our society.
With every lecture Professor Mahmoudi gives, we learn something new and are further inspired to create the change that needs to be made. Please welcome back to the stage Professor Hoda Mahmoudi.
Thank you. I know that the evening is long and I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to just give you about a 25-minute presentation called Imagining a New World, the Labor of Peace, if I may. 10 years ago, in November 2012, during the inaugural ceremony where I was officially made the third holder of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace, I began my lecture with the following observation. The aspiration for achieving peace has been a central concern throughout human history. Generation after generation, men, women have longed for, struggled for, perished for peace. In the 20th century alone, it is estimated that some 6 million children, women, and men lost their lives as a result of war and genocide. Even in this, the 21st century, the human rights of more than 3 billion people, about 1/2 of the world's population, are not protected. Unfortunately, little has changed in the world since this statement was made 10 years ago. And during that time, the world has only grown more complex and interconnected. The reach of social media and the influence of global politics, the impact of natural disasters and global health catastrophes, and more broadly, the fundamental interwovenness of all of us has only increased. Today, every positive or negative change that takes place is felt throughout the world. The depth and breadth of the interconnectedness of the world cannot be denied. However, the lack of governmental capacity and the inability of our social institutions to accommodate the ongoing changes is a serious threat to our peace and security. The world is getting smaller, yet inequality, suffering, fragmentation, and disorder are increasing. What are we to do in the face of such challenges? Since the creation of the Baha'i Chair 30 years ago, we have maintained an enduring, unshakable belief that world peace is possible. This belief animates all that we do and spurs us to seek excellence in education, research, and publishing, and helps unveil the pathways to peace. And because the demands of peace are so serious, we seek a holistic, integrative approach to pursuing peace. This approach views the peoples of the world as a single, inclusive, organic unit, much like the human body. For just as the human body is made of constituent organs that work together in harmony, so too must our world be coordinated and harmonized if the whole is to function properly. This view causes us to seek an interdisciplinary approach to the social problems of the day, problems which block the pathways to peace. Our approach is process-oriented and inclusive and draws insights from our shared human values, those ethical and moral realities we all share. We believe that these shared values provide the foundation for cooperation and collaboration. And as such, we are firmly devoted to building such a foundation. In the previous 10 years, the chair has collaborated and invited, as you heard, many scholars, some 250. We've hosted conferences, lectures, roundtables, symposia, and featured speakers from 25 countries around the world. We've offered courses, one on the problem of prejudice, which won an award, one on is world peace possible, is global governance and world government, what is needed to make the world more peaceful, is the second course. And during the past year, we have published 7 books, and an 8th one is on the way, entitled Women and Inequality in a Changing World, Exploring New Paradigms for Peace. More than 10 visiting scholars have worked alongside the chair. These scholars have published 6 books and more than a dozen articles. And in 2019, the chair received an award from the University of Maryland for outstanding work on issues of structural racism, awarded by the President's Commission on Ethnic Minority Issues. Of course, we're proud of the awards and the recognition, but we are most proud to be engaged in the ongoing, daily, often unseen task of grappling with the world's most complex questions. Questions like, what is the pathway to a successful model of global governance? What is the best way to remove the attributes of structural racism and prejudice? How can we increase the visibility and viability of women in the world? What can we do to address the concerns facing our natural environment? And finally, how can we better understand ourselves and each other? But perhaps all these questions and many more can be summed up with one broad question, a kind of question of questions, which is, how might we imagine a new world? The most important aspect of this question is not the word we. I'm sorry, it is the word we. The question does not ask how I might change the world, nor how you might change the world, but rather how we might imagine a new world. Also encased in this question is the view of humanity as a fundamentally capable humanity, capable of great things. One would not ask so bold a question if one did not think change were possible. But viewing humanity as fundamentally capable does not mean that we view the world through rose-colored glasses. We are very aware that there is evil in the world, and in fact spend a great deal of time on the heaviest issues in the world. Our 5 themes: discrimination and prejudice, the equality of women, the harm done to the environment, the perplexities of human nature, and the failures of global governance. But these 5 themes are not just guidelines or things we are interested in talking about. These 5 themes represent the tectonic ruptures that divide us. We examine these ideas because these are where the problems are. We do not examine these ideas to simply focus on the negative. Instead, we examine these issues in order to identify where certain practices and undertakings have been successful. We then look to see how these approaches can be reiterated in different places. We are sunny about the possibilities of change, but we are sober-minded about the complexity of the world and the existence of evil. We are always looking for an alignment of social and moral and ethical interests, and we believe indeed we have seen over time that such an alignment is possible. We refuse to consider the notion that a better world cannot be constructed. For we can see historically and in fits and starts, progress has been made. Our optimism is therefore not a metaphysical, hands over the eyes, unscientific optimism. Rather, it is an optimism rooted in empirical reality. Because we believe this, we are ever eager to contribute to the cause of peace. The Baha'i Chair looks to provide a platform for the solutions to the problems of peace which show the most promise. And while this search is very much a human undertaking, it is also a scientific undertaking. For the pursuit of peace is not simply a hope it all works out set of practices. It is a complex process of testing hypotheses in the search for the best results in the social world. In so doing, we believe we are aligning ourselves with the best principles that the university's pursuit of knowledge offers. We look to build on the fundamental truths and vital discoveries of the human population, while identifying, celebrating, and sharing its most valuable achievements. This ongoing search for humanity's best practices is our method for creating peace in the world. We are interdisciplinary because modern life can only be understood from multiple perspectives. We are not simply interdisciplinary for the sake of being interdisciplinary. We never assert that we know more than others, for we too are continually engaged in an ongoing learning process. We too work hard to remain in a learning posture. For unlike a think tank on a particular side of a political debate, we are not looking to find the best practices for a particular side. Rather, we are looking to build a storehouse of human knowledge, human accomplishment, and human possibility. We accomplish this in part through an old-fashioned notion, disinterestedness. But disinterestedness does not mean uninterested. It means seeking to put away our own inclinations and predilections for the pursuit of a greater cause. We want to do everything we can to unearth the practices which aid humankind, no matter their origin. Do we have a particular interest, preference, particularity? Of course we do. Is there anything wrong with possessing a certain viewpoint? Of course not. But we believe in the human value of seeking to temper one's own perspective, and we wish to avoid the pride of thinking that we have it all figured out. Such a stance ensures that we can stay curious, humble, and open to new ideas, all the while refraining from pressing our own views upon others. For we believe that when people or institutions have undeclared agendas, they give off the aroma of a provincial bent towards a predetermined outcome. When this happens, the path has already been decided, regardless of if it is the best way to go. We seek instead to help illuminate a path to the universal pursuit of knowledge and truth. We believe that peace can only be achieved when there is an openness to new solutions and we seek to assemble a storehouse of intellectual, social, and spiritual possibility. Assembling a broad archive of knowledge and insight means avoiding divisiveness and predetermination. And assembling such an archive is only the first step. One still must research the best ways to take all of that knowledge and bring it into the world to impact others. And even that impact is not set in stone, but is ever changing. A solution to something today may not work tomorrow. For the vectors of cultural change and social evolution demand solutions to be updated, preserved, and sometimes even discarded. Therefore, we do not only seek ways to impact the world, but we study how current attempts to impact the world are faring. This is yet another reason why we work and the work of peace is so difficult. The scale of the challenge is absolutely breathtaking in its complexity. And our standard for achievement, a fully collaborative effort involving every human being on earth, will not come easily. We know this. It should come as no surprise, then, that with such an important calling, the manner in which we seek to build collaborations must also be soaked in the considerations of peace. For the chair does not look to create a mind colony of others' information. It seeks to locate a neutral ground where we can learn together, apply principles together, reflect on what we've applied, and then chart a path forward. It is a collaborative, collective endeavor, and we look to position ourselves as an intellectually unaffiliated arbiter of best practices. This is not to say we do not have an agenda at all. We do have an agenda. But our agenda is singular, and it is broad, and it is plainly declared in our name. Our agenda, our goal, our pursuit is world peace. In that undertaking of that agenda, we are open to anyone and anything. We are not looking to prioritize one group, one approach, one historical outcome. We work with a sense of all hands on deck, and we seek to let the best ideas emerge. But in seeking the best ideas, it becomes clear how the best ideas are often obstructed. We therefore seek to understand the pitfalls and obstructions that stop the best ideas from being implemented. We also begin to recognize the patterns of bad ideas and bad practices that prevent further growth of peace. We believe in examining history. We believe in examining history, that one can see the repetition of poor practices which undercut our ability to achieve a broader peace, an outcome not unique to any particular society in the world. From Europe to Asia, to Africa, to the Americas, and beyond, the failure of human societies to create a lasting, enduring peace is universal. One can therefore conclude that these failures are not the failures of a particular culture or nation, but are profoundly human failures. Such a sad state of affairs can be viewed everywhere in the world. And everywhere, certain malign influences repeat themselves. Divisions that ensure that ethnic minorities remain behind the wall of prejudice and discrimination, an inability to empathize with others or to even understand our own human nature, the failure to embrace the role of half of the world's population, women, a slowness in comprehending the need for global responses to human governance, a tacit approval of the degradation of our natural environment. This is why we seek peace, and this is why we desire, it must be said, the absence of peace. Because the absence of peace leaves our world threadbare and half-achieved, ensuring that we will not reach our full potential. The absence of peace chokes the garden of our flowering humanity from its true bounty and beauty. The absence of peace forces us to repeat same old mistakes, even though they appear in a variety of different disguises. For the good will always be challenged by the forces of evil, and there will always be weeds which seek to grow in the garden of peace. This is why the work of peace demands the slow cultivation of what is good and the careful pruning of what is bad. For as many know, gardening is hard work. Those of you who garden will know and relate to this. It requires thoughtfulness and dedication and an embrace of natural limits of what is truly possible. Coconuts do not grow on Mount Everest. Birch trees do not grow in the southern hemisphere. Weeds allowed to run wild will choke the roses. Carelessly ripping out budding plants erase other good things in the garden. The wisdom of the garden and of the gardener is a lived wisdom, a wisdom of practice and personal investment. And the gardener's activities can seem both foolhardy and overcautious. Foolhardy for focusing on so prosaic a goal. Overcautious because we may think that the gardener has lost courage because of his patience or her patience. Gardeners are bold to assume that they can shape the world for the better, that they can help to produce something beautiful. And gardeners are careful to understand that it is easier to destroy something than to build something. Gardeners may read books, but there is something special that happens when fingertips touch dirt. Likewise, the work of peace is not a call for new theories and new philosophies. The search for peace is the search for people, anyone willing to do the work of peace. And it is work anybody can do. A peace that involves all humanity, where every individual is involved, where expertise is shared, ensures a robust peace that has an opportunity to endure. For peace is not so much a proposal as it is a recognition that nowhere in the world has peace fully blossomed. Sadly, we know peace more from its absence than its presence. All societies everywhere in the world since the beginning of time have only known peace as an infrequent visitor. Humanity has never enjoyed full, collaborative, fully peaceful, universal peace. Sadly, the world has always been at war with itself. Powers rise, emerging in glory, only to slowly fade away. Without a commitment to a fundamentally different undertaking, such a state will repeat itself forever. One may invent a new ism, a new undertaking, a new form of government, a new political theory, a new social philosophy, but it will not last. It cannot last. It has never lasted, and it never will, unless there is a radically different approach. This is for us what peace means, a radically different approach to human living that must be undertaken. Peace is the opposite direction of the wall that humanity continues to hit its head upon and has done so for thousands of years everywhere in the world. What is lovely about this description of peace is that talking about peace this way, as dark and depressing as it is, also requires a moment of realization and a determination to look another way. What's beautiful about this reality is that this assertion of peace does not prefer the Greeks more than the Romans, the Aztecs more than the Persians, the French more than the British. We can look at all these places and all these people and see wonderful things and terrible things. But we can see that even in the greatness of society, there has never been a sustained peace. Against this backdrop, what are the chances peace will spontaneously occur, or that we can repeat the activities of the past to accomplish what has never been accomplished before, even by the most brilliant human beings on the face of the earth, the most accomplished societies in history? I would say the chances are 0. But perhaps that 0 is also a good place to start. Perhaps peace itself can be thought of as a year 0, the first step in a long journey. As participants in peace, we are thoughtful about where we step. But we are also relieved of the burden of knowing fully where we are going, because no one has figured it out to date. But if we have not discovered the golden road of peace, we have come to understand some of the hindrances on that road. But hindrances can also be revealing. Thus, the chair examines the pursuit of peace throughout history, seeking to learn from the failures of peace. For just as the Wright brothers, the inventors and builders of the world's first flying airplane, just as the Wright brothers comprehensively studied the reasons why planes 1, 2, and 3 didn't fly, we too can seek to understand why peace has not reigned throughout humanity. For the Wright brothers' failure was not depressing. In fact, they viewed it as quite informative. With each failure, they moved towards a hopeful end and looked to modify and improve their approaches. Failure, when a great undertaking is occurring, is a kind of success. Yet those who would seek a great undertaking must constrain themselves within a studied method. In our case, we seek not a flying machine, but a global universal peace. And the mixed data sets of success and failure abound. There have been places which have made extraordinary steps to create democratic processes and collaborative practices, but did not involve particular cultural groups in their effort. Other societies have created principled cultures which upheld justice, but failed by not embracing women's abilities. This long process of examination, a kind of continuum of human scientific discovery, holds promise for us all. Such a study reveals something positive about our essential humanity, our innate, insatiable curiosity, our deep desire to understand how the world works, and therefore how to find our place in it. For whether we are building a house, a flying machine, or a peaceful society, the same thoughtful practices, the same attention and intention, and the same curiosity must be present. It is intellectual curiosity and desire that led people to preserve ancient manuscripts during the Middle Ages. We too, at the chair, want to preserve the greatest peaceful accomplishments of our era and of the eras before. For just as those preserved manuscripts from Greece, Rome, and the Islamic world, once discovered, cast a whole new light by revealing knowledge that had been forgotten, we too seek to add to the warehouse of human knowledge that could one day be rediscovered, especially when dark times are entered into. And dark times are not simply overcome by satisfying of material needs. Dark times are overcome by spiritual insight, by a lofty and principled idea, the remembered past, and even by beauty. This is because peace is not simply the absence of something ugly, but the presence of something sacred within us, and something sacred within the world. Now, such sacredness need not be enjoined by an intermediary. Such a pursuit can be undertaken by anyone. The question then becomes, how do we engage in such a pursuit? Today, we live in a world that is profoundly insular and individualistic, a world that encourages us to go and make our own separate dreams. Here in the United States, for instance, people come from all over the world to try to achieve their dreams, and not just as individuals, but as families and as communities. They seek to take full advantage of the freedoms of opportunities offered here, to lay out their own claims to a broader, better humanity. Indeed, the world that these dreamers created has forged a beautiful American mosaic, one of possibility and of moral, ethical, and familial accomplishment. Thus, one could reasonably say that the first engagement toward peace begins with the individual. But it does not stay there. For the prospects of moral accomplishment is a kind of self-evident faith and ethical assertion that animates so many of us, whether religious or not, from every culture, from every country, and every background. And moral accomplishments cannot occur in a vacuum. Values like love, steadfastness, goodness, stamina over time, courage, valor, and selflessness occur in the world with people. They happen when we are fully enmeshed and involved with real human communities. And I'm coming to the end. Here is the beginning of our great call, a call to the best of ourselves, a call to the best of each other. This call is not limited by race, culture, gender, creed, or natural ability. It is a personal call, one that will not always be intelligible to others, but its privacy does not demean its reality, and its demand that we enter into relationships with others does not mean that we ought to abandon the care for our own souls. For it is in this caring for our own souls that we become convinced that we ought to treat others the same. A loving interior flows to a loving exterior, where we can enjoy the fruits of love and friendship. Peace begins at home, as it were, in the heart. Peace, like love, cannot be packaged and bought, but it can be invested in. And that investment begins with a commitment to the construction and preservation of our own inward worlds. As Baha'u'llah states, a person must before all else conquer with the sword of inner meaning and explanation the city of his own heart and guard it. Our first solemn duty is not to improve the world, but to seek to improve the city of our own heart. Such a commitment is a sacred trust and an affirmation of our own human dignity. It means accepting that there is an indivisible core within, beyond the prying eyes of others, that remains resolute, unbreakable, unreachable. This is the foundation of our practice, of our activities, and of our faith in ourselves and each other. This foundation is absolutely necessary if we are ever to be able to go beyond the city of our own hearts and encounter the cities of others. Indeed, Baha'u'llah states that we must proceed in this way, for even scientific undertakings must have a bedrock of accepted truth and immovable, unchangeable assertion. In geometry, a line and a point are used to build theories and proofs, but are themselves neither proven or disproven. They are accepted as universal, built into the fabric of all that comes next. The question for us then is, what are our universal assertions? The piece, the building blocks to our faith and practice. What do we believe? We at the Baha'i Chair believe that human beings are worth saving, that they have dignity for reasons that do not extend to the purpose they enact. We believe there is an indivisible sacredness to every human being. We believe that peace and the desire for peace and the work towards peace ascends from a private commitment to an inward devotion. We believe that human beings, sacred of their own accord, are ever capable of improvement. For if one person is capable of improvement, several people are capable of improvement. And if several people are capable of improvement, many are capable of improvement. If one can change, all can change. And if a world can grow worse, it can grow better. But how might this occur? By thoughtfulness, by consideration, by choices, by attention, by intention, by surrounding ourselves with good narratives, by reminding ourselves that what humanity has accomplished, and we have witnessed this, we have witnessed others with much less than us hold on to a valuable ideal and build themselves up with it. This is a good sort of individualism. It proceeds from a place that says, I'm going to do my part to improve myself, but at some point I'm going to need help. I will align myself with things that are helpful to me, but I will need you to do your part. And this is where I believe the Baha'i Chair and other grand ventures come in. Our part is to build a knowledgeable archive and to cast about for the brightest pathways to peace. And let us remind ourselves of what peace really is and what peace really means. Peace is one human soul seeking to improve herself. Peace is all of us, everywhere. Peace starts with you, it starts with me today, but it does not end there. The processes of peace are slow, ongoing, and deeply, deeply personal. Peace cannot be achieved in a day and may not be achieved in my lifetime or yours. But the processes of peace, and even more importantly, the yearning for peace, is our most human attribute. In choosing the paths of peace, we choose the best of all we are and the best of all we can be. For in choosing peace, we lay the first stone towards the construction of a new world. And the laying of the stones of peace fires the imaginations of those today and those to come. But simply to imagine peace is to imagine a new world. The successes of peace will come from all of us, and us comprised of the fellowship of the willing. The work of peace will come from a collaboration of those dedicated to toiling in unison, regardless and regardful of the past, while being fully in the present and with a mind to the future. We invite you to help us imagine such a new world of peace. Thank you. Nothing to do with what's coming next.
So we have a surprise for Hoda. So I would like to invite Rabi Musa up to the stage and also Mojgan as well too, please.
She really knows nothing about this. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rabi Musa, and on behalf of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States, and also the International Advisory Board for the Baha'i Chair for World Peace, I am privileged and honored to present to you a gift. And I'm going to need to either come here,
Yes, ma'am.
or I'm going to need to step away and we
Yes,
can't
ma'am,
hear.
I'm right here.
Yeah. And so this is it. It's crystal, and it's got a globe, and with an inscription that speaks to the wonderful services that you have rendered over this decade. You are so very welcome. And we have one more surprise. She says she was tricked. Yes, you were. Come here. So we are also pleased to present, again, on behalf of the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States, and also the International Advisory Board for the Baha'i Chair for World Peace, this bouquet for the Assistant Director of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace, Kate Seaman. I don't want to miss it.
Thank you very much. And now you can all go to this room over here and enjoy some nice sweets and refreshments. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you for joining us, and we wish you all the best. And let's all work for peace.